Do you really know what you want to do when you're 16 years old? I was a pretty competitive kid. I wouldn't say really ambitious. I was curious, always have been. But I was pretty mediocre in school. And the best time in my career actually started when I just started running machines for a art and craft wholesaler. And I started on a night shift. I was about 22, maybe 18 months into working here when our biggest customer in Australia, we were mostly just an Australian company at that time, went into administration, and overnight it just completely floored the business. They weren't going to pay their bills. All orders stopped immediately, of course, and everything just changed. And the owner came in maybe about a day later after we all heard this news, and he'd asked the two joint CEOs, or whatever they were at the time, what their plan was to put together a plan. And I think, I don't really know how long he gave them and what they came back with, but I know within a week or two they were gone. So no leadership, no plan, just gone. And the business owner sort of looked around, and I guess within a week or so he'd assessed what he had a bit of a plan, and came to myself and one other guy in the business who happened to be his cousin, and essentially said to us, can you guys step up and can you bullfeds get along? And that was the start of it. And the next 5 years just went like that, and it's history really now. Over that next 5 years, I did nearly every role in the business, at least every role that didn't exist until I put it into place. So I was a graphic designer. I was designing CAD files for the cutters. I started essentially our R&D department, started up new manufacturing processes locally, and then that of course led to importing some complementary products. I used to have the first green bolt that I remember sort of grinding off that first container that I brought in. I couldn't find it today. But I was basically every role in the business as we grew, and I was lucky enough that Stephen gave me that opportunity. And as long as, I think this is just a thing in life, a thing in your work life at least. If you just can solve problems for people, you'll continue to get opportunities. So I found this before, rummaging through my stuff. This is my passport. And I spent so much time in China at that time of my life. It was ridiculous. I was probably spending like 3 months a year there. And here's something really interesting. So spend so much time there, eventually you're going to create an opportunity for yourself to end up in a stupid magazine or something. And there I am. So that's me when I was younger. That was just sort of like an expat bar, and I'd made friends with an Irish guy and a couple of other buyers that were there. The Irish guy ended up coming to my wedding actually. A journalist had just come into the bar, and I think it was just a story he was running on, a sort of like the growing expat community and the trade show that was there at the time and stuff. And anyways, that's how I ended up in a Chinese magazine. One of the reasons why I think I so often get people just say, oh, you just get me, you understand me, you understand my business. And I think it's because of that background that I have. By the time I was like 25, 27 years old, I was as familiar with printing, printing terminology, graphic design and printing terminology and graphic programs, as I was balance sheets and P&Ls. I can't remember how it went down, but close to my third year as general manager in the business, I was essentially managed out, which sounds crazy because it was sort of like maybe the third year of massive growth. I think Stephen and Carol and the owners of the business were just ready for change. less friction. And certainly to that point, it was friction that made fire. We were very different. We were all very different in the team, but we had each other's backs. We got along and we got the job done, and we just grew like crazy. But they were ready for change, and I had a lot of influence in the business, and I don't think that change could have happened if I was there. I totally understand that the time was right. And it's really interesting because sometimes you feel like you sort of don't understand why things are changing, but you also always seem to find yourself in the right place at the right time of your life, not the right moment, but the right time of your life. So although I didn't understand it then, it was just the perfect thing for me.
And I never wanna let go. I can hold out here.
That guy who would ultimately, I guess, replace me, he'd only been there a couple of months, ended up submitting our story to, I think it was BRW's fastest growing companies Australia, top 100 list for a 3-year period. And I remember I was just so frustrated with that at the time because I just didn't feel like he'd earned it, like he'd earned to put that in for us, or it's sort of like almost on behalf of himself, it felt. But it's hilarious because now I absolutely love that he did, in hindsight. Because if I sat here today and said to you, during that time, we grew like crazy. Like you just don't understand. We grew really fast. That doesn't hit quite as hard as me saying, during my 3 years as general manager there, we grew so fast that we ended up on BRW's fastest growing companies list in Australia, number 67, I think, if my memory serves me correct. It's an accolade. It doesn't mean that much, but it is just a line in the sand in my career. In a career where it's just meandered and I've never really known what I want to be. So I found this. This is a book the staff made for me on the way out. So I guess such was my influence and connection with the team that they put this together, which is a bit of a memento of all the trips, all the time together. We took leadership really seriously, like really good quality leadership seriously. There's the Business Excellence Awards there. Spent so much time in the US, setting up distribution there and selling into there. And one day I really need to go back and read some of these things. How good is that they did that for me? Stephen, the guy that I worked for, who really challenged me in every way, I guess spiritually, mentally, business-wise. I credit him for 90% of my business acumen today. I was one-on-one with him one day in his office, and I remember he said to me, "You could be the CEO of like a BHP one day." Even then I said to him, "Nah, there's no chance of that happening." I had no idea what I wanted to be, but like I sure as hell knew what I didn't want to become. I'll tell you a secret, kids. The adults, even the ones that are telling you to find your thing at 16, they are still asking themselves, what do I want to be when I grow up?